Hello, how are you? I'm sorry about the last week. Well, this is just another excuse that I have to make, but I'm in the midst of moving from a big apartment to a small apartment. And because of uh, the business that I have to do during the moving, still, I haven't finished it yet. I think it's going to take several more weeks to finish it up. But I was too busy and I just forgot to record the new clip. So I apologize and I hope you can forgive me. Now, of course, the excuse. Everybody makes mistakes, okay? So, but today I want to talk about the differences between the American English and the British English. Okay, of course, the original English came from England, but it is a small country and mainly English people or other people who can relate to the English language live around there. But then the New World America, especially uh, the North America, which includes Canada and the United States of America. Of course, the United States of America is a large country and a large population it has. And of course, the variety of people come from all over the world. And they brought the different languages, religions, food, lifestyle, beliefs, races, etc., of course. So, people of the United States had to create or make new words which are necessary because British English wasn't just enough. Or also some people started to use British English words differently. So today we have a big differences between the American English and the British English. For example, when you walk on the streets or road, people, especially in the United States, do not walk on where the automobiles, trucks, taxis, uh, buses. No, people walk the side of their special kind of like a road made for pedestrians, which means walkers, and people walk on the streets. And in the United States, they call it sidewalk. I walk on the sidewalk. We walk on the sidewalk. But in British English, they call it pavement. Walk on the pavement. So, American English, sidewalk. British English, pavement. Another word, for example, bureau. Bureau in British English is kind of like a working desk kind of thing. But in America, they call it secretary. Uh, it is a part of the furniture inside your home or apartment or condominium or mansion if you live there. Okay, it's kind of like a working desk. Is secretary in the American English. In British English, it is called bureau. Okay, for example, cities in the United States have variety of sizes, but in the British city is a pretty big um sort of like it has what can I do? Important politically, culturally, and has the maybe big abbey or the cathedral, big church is there, or city hall is there. That's called the city. But in the United States, the small towns are also called a city. That's a slight difference. Mm, Probably you know the word biscuit. Well, biscuit in the British is kind of like, well, how can I say? American people call them cookies. American calls cookies, kind of like a snack. I like almond chocolate chip cookies. But then British people call it a biscuit. Now, in the United States of America, the biscuit means kind of like bread kind of thing. Well, which British people call that food scone. So for the tea time, there are many scones on the table, and you put jam or you put ham or marmalade and eat with tea. That was traditional English tea time, sounds like. But in the United States, biscuit means almost like scones. But then British biscuits. Well, some people call it Vicky, the little children. Americans call them cookies. All right. So if you use the American English, make it sure biscuits are kind of like a British scone. And if you wanted to indicate the British biscuits, you have to say cookies in America. Now, well, the rock, not a rock and roll. Rock is like a big stone kind of thing. That's, British people call it a rock, like a Rocky Mountain, large, large sizes. But American people, even small sizes, they call it a rock. So, but then I think many, how can I say, like American small rocks, they call it kind of like a pebbles or something like that. Now, pond. Pond is where the water stays. And some people have fish inside or water lilies bloom, something like that pond. Usually in the British English, they call it their man-made, or I would say artificial, uh, very, very small, kind of like a water place, kind of like a small lake. That's pond. But in the United States, ponds are even small, small. Ones are not called pond. They called it pretty big one. And even the natural places are called pond as well, which doesn't happen in the British English. So a pond in British English is the small artificial kind of like a mini lake. And in American English, those are natural, also are large ponds. Does it make sense? Well, okay. Now, other words. Oh, yes, corn. The word corn. In the American English, people feed corns to the animals, or people eat corn. So they make popcorns out of corns, we say. But in British, the American corns are called maize. But corn means in the British English includes any kind of grains, kind of like a rice, going like that, or well, barley, wheat, rye, anything they have this kind of here, the okay, seeds which we eat. That's corn. So the traditional Bible say okay, it goes back to before Christ. So a few thousand years ago. Do you know the lady called Ruth? Well, we talk about maybe later about the story of Naomi and Ruth. Ruth is Naomi's daughter-in-law, and Naomi is Ruth's mother-in-law. But anyway, Ruth goes to the field and pick the corns. It means she would pick up the maybe barley, wheat, something like that. Maize, it means corns, as you know, in the American English, didn't exist in Israel a few thousand years ago. Why? Because corns were originally from the American continent. And until Columbus discovered the New World, corns did not exist in Asia, Africa, Oceania, or in Europe. So, if you read the Bible and about the, especially the Old Testament, don't make a mistake. If they indicate corn, it means any kind of grains. But in the United States, corn means British maize, which you make popcorns out of them. Okay. Now, there are many, many city names or town names called La 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 Creek. La 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 Creek. Well, creek is the sort of the entrance of the kind of like a rivers from the ocean or the lakes or the seas in the British English. But Americans use it for, let's say, small rivers which flow into large rivers. Well, rivers, if you understand that rivers flow into the seas or the oceans, then creek, okay, creeks flow into other creeks or rivers. If you remember that like that, then you can understand the difference between creek and river. Okay, but the British English creek is the, I would say, river mouth, maybe. Do you understand? Now, next one is like shoes. We wear a pair of shoes almost every day today, not a longer time ago, because they used to wear sort of like barefooted or slippers or sandals or whatever. But then, in the British English, shoes, it means any kind of But of course, long ones are called boots. But the British people always say shoes are not the covering your ankle. That's shoes. But then if it covers your ankle area, uh, that British people call it boots. But Americans, of course, they use the word boots, but also people call boots also shoes as well sometimes, like a rain shoes. But the British English says it should be rain boots. All right. Any other? Well, let's covered maybe a few of them for today. So, well, that's all for today. Take care of yourself and see you next week. Ciao for now.